Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request entitled, this is an FBI liaison information report entitled Domestic Violent Extremists Emboldened in Aftermath of Capitol Breach. It cites online rhetoric regarding the 20 January presidential inauguration, with some calling for unspecified justice for the January 6th shooting by law enforcement of an individual at the Capitol building, and another positing that, quote, many armed individuals would return on 19 January, according to open source reporting.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Gentleman from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, hey, just hold 1 second, if you could. We'll stop your time. I should have mentioned, if any of you need a break, just let us know. We'll be, if you have to run to the restroom or anything like, just let us know. We've been going at this 2 hours. We've probably got a half hour to go. If you can find, but if you need a break, just let us know and we'll go there. I apologize. Gentleman's recognized.
No problem, Mr. Chairman. It's unfortunate that this hearing is tended to focus on January 6th and the inaugural that followed 2 weeks later, because there is a legitimate question about the gathering of information, mostly by private sector, businesses and the like, and then the government accessing that information. It's a worldwide phenomena, and it is something that we should be focusing on. Unfortunately, what's happened here in this hearing is that we've taken the January 6th issue, the insurrection, the violence, the harm that came to Officer Falone and others, and morphed it into a larger question of our civil liberties. That's unfortunate. But here we are, using this hearing to somehow degrade the violence and the insurrection itself and the ultimate effort to destroy our democracy. So I think we have to stay with that a few seconds. Officer Falone, just a couple of questions I want to get clear. Do you have the number of insurrectionists, rioters that have been charged and found guilty?
Correct.
Do you know that the number is, I think, over 1,100?
That's my understanding, close to 1,200.
In this process, was any information developed that indicated there might be future violence, for example, at the inaugural?
Yes, that's my understanding from speaking to those involved in the investigation.
Do any of the witnesses disagree with that? Okay. And based on this, is it reasonable for the federal government, FBI, and other agencies to investigate certain individuals in an effort to prevent future violence? Is that a reasonable thing for the government to do?
Again, I don't only think it's reasonable. I think that it's a requirement.
Okay. Now, do any of you disagree that it would be reasonable for the federal government to investigate those who were involved and the threats that there might be future violence? Is that something that the FBI and others should do?
I would disagree with that to some degree. It depends on how they do it. Because
thank you. Point well made. Not going to.
Okay. Yeah.
So the notion of continued investigation based upon information received as a result of the conviction and investigations of those that were involved in the insurrection, the rioting, would be reasonable. So now we get down to the point, and this is where this hearing really got off track. And it's unfortunate to equate this issue of our personal civil liberties and privacies with the January 6th insurrection. We need to divide these two issues. There's no doubt we had an insurrection. There's no doubt we had a riot. There's no doubt that Officer Falone, you were injured along with 140 other officers. The film that was shown earlier clearly demonstrates that, and your own testimony. We thank you for your work that day. I think I agree with Mr. Connolly. You may not think it important to protect us, but we certainly thought, and we thank you for having done so. But the reality is that it was an extraordinary, serious event in America's history. It was the single largest assault on police ever in the history of this nation. Now, based upon that, where do we go? Put that over here. And then, Mr. Chairman, if you would, put all of that aside and stop trying to protect Mr. Trump or anybody else that was involved in that riot, in that insurrection, and let's get down to the issue of protecting our civil liberties. There are multiple examples that could be used and evidence that could be used to get to that point. Some of it presented by the witnesses today, unfortunately wrapped up in the January 6th and the insurrection and the subsequent question of the inaugural. I do note, as I drove here this morning, that a new fence has been put around the Capitol building. Now, this speaks to all of our safety. And why is it that in America today we have the need for a new 7-foot-high fence around the Capitol on the day that the president arrives to give his State of the Union? So I think I'll just leave it there with the seconds left. And Mr. Chairman, if you would put aside your desire to go after and protect the president and get down to the issues that are really critically important for all of us, I would appreciate it. And I think this country would also.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been focusing on how technological platforms